Hey, I'm Nick Fiorentino, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to show you why you need the JHS Colour Box V2. When I heard about this, it instantly became my favorite pedal because this pedal kind of does everything that I've ever wanted in one guitar pedal. It is first and foremost a distortion pedal, it can overdrive your amp, it can get this nasty kind of fuzz sound, and then you can also use it as a preamp for your microphones because it has an XLR input and output on each side. And I've had an engineer even tell me they've used it live for professional reasons with a vocalist, and they just distort their vocals, which is really cool. You can also just use it to record your microphones. So this pedal is based off a Neve 1073 preamp, and it's been used for microphones, it's been used for primarily guitar, which sounds really great, but it's even been used to plug right into the preamp to play guitar. And it's kind of popular through the Beatles' Revolution's very famous sound. The Chic is another great example of a direct guitar tone. A lot of times if you use a direct input from any instrument, it's going to go through some sort of preamp, and a lot of people like to use the Neve. And that's what the JHS Colour Box is based on. So the first version just had the 3 controls, but this one they've updated everything else. And I'm going to tell you about those features. So here's some of the controls of the pedal. We have a master, which is your volume. We have the pre-volume, which is your gain. Then we have a step control, which clicks into different positions. It's just more gain on tap. Then we have treble, middle, and bass right here. And they kind of stop in the middle, which is neutral. And if you turn them counterclockwise, it's a cut. And if you turn them clockwise, it's a boost. So in the first version of this pedal, it only had treble, middle, and bass, and they added these treble shift, mid shift, and bass shift knobs, which is really cool, because the frequencies you originally start with are 10,000 Hertz for the treble, 1,000 Hertz for the middle, and 120 Hertz for the bass. Those are really good frequencies to use for guitar, but it's even better when you can shift it to be a higher frequency than that. And you can, if you need to get to lower frequencies, you can shift it counterclockwise. So then the other thing that's really cool is that there's a high pass filter on here, which basically cuts all the low end that you don't need, and it starts at 60 Hertz all the way counterclockwise, and then as you turn it up, it goes up to, I think, 600 Hertz, and it's really useful for mixing. I mean, if you go up to 600 Hertz, it's going to be pretty drastic. But on the other hand, if you boost your bass really high, you can kind of create this like cut and boost which saturates the low end, and I'm going to show an example of that later. It's really awesome. Then there's a high and low switch for changing the overall volume of the pedal, and if you're using it right into the front of the amp, which already has a preamp, then you're going to want to use the low setting, and if you're using it with a bunch of studio gear, a lot of times the high setting is a better way to go. So in the input of the pedal, you can use a 1/4 inch cable or you can use an XLR. And it's got a 20 decibel pad if you're using it as a mic, and you can switch from instrument to XLR to change. Then on the output you have an XLR output and you have a 1/4 inch output, so you can use it as a DI with a mic if you're using it right to a bass amp. If you're using it to a guitar amp, you can just take the extra DI from an XLR cable. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to play without the pedal first, and then I'm going to click the pedal on. It's pretty simple. Follow along. So here's what it sounds like without the JHS Colour Box V2. I'm going to play kind of like a heavy sounding riff on a clean amp. Here it is. I love the way this sounds. It's really heavy. It is kind of a cool like splatty tone. It sounds really fuzzy, and I have the high pass filter cutting out a lot of lows, and when it distorts more like that, you get even a better sounding fuzz and distortion. I really love the way it sounds. It's going into the front of the amp for this one. So here I'm using it in the effects loop, and the cool thing about that is that this pedal is a preamp in and of itself, and the effects loop is right before your preamp anyway. So When you use it like that, it's kind of like a second gain stage to your amp. You can use it as a separate channel. You can just distort everything you already have going through the front of your amp. It's really cool. It's a really cool way to use it. I think I like using it better in the effects loop, actually. So here's what it sounds like. Awesome! It sounds awesome. I love the way it breaks up the amp. It sounds amazing. You can get all these sorts of Beatles tones. You can get like even some like great. Like it doesn't sound exactly like what the Beatles amp sounds like, but this pedal takes the distortion to how they use it in the studio. So here's a good way to use the pedal when you're kind of cutting some of the mids and you want to use it even in a clean setting. It can kind of just like clean up your tone. As weird as that sounds, you can clean it up even more than it is already. So here's what it sounds like. It's going to just make it sound a little more put together. Does a really cool thing to the low end of the amp, and it makes it even better for sculpting the way you want your sound. So my Dr. Z amp is a Fender style amp, and it doesn't get a lot of distortion, not the way a Marshall does. And this pedal can kind of push it into that territory, and I'll show you a little bit. When you really want to push the mids of the amp, you have the mid control right there. You can sweep it up to whatever you want. That's something I really like about it. So another cool thing is when you really want to boost a certain frequency, in other pedals you can't really control the rest of it. So this, when you want to boost the mid, you can also boost the low or the high. And here's what it sounds like. So back to the front of the amp, and what I'm doing right now is cutting the low end with the high pass filter, and then I'm boosting the low end on the bass control. What that's doing is it's overdriving the low end of the pedal, and in the front of the amp it's going to make something where I have the bass turned down pretty low. It's going to saturate the low end without shaking the whole cabinet. So here's what it sounds like. Alright, to summarize, here's why you need to get this pedal. This pedal is only $400 new, and it does what a distortion pedal, an EQ pedal, and a preamp pedal, and a DI does all in one. What I really like about it is that if it's not on my pedal board, I can just put it anywhere I want. If I'm using it at the studio, I'll just put it right out on the floor while we're recording, use it as a preamp. If I'm going to a show, no one's using it. If I'm not using it on my pedal board, I just give it to the singer. They can run their vocal distortion through this. It's really cool. I can give it to the bass player. They can use it as a DI. It just has so many uses that I found so much value in it already. And I just want to keep this pedal forever. I'd probably get a second one. It's really good. And the best part is that you just keep finding more uses for it as you go. And I really love this pedal, and I think you should give it a shot. If you can find one, get it. Alright, so thanks for checking out my review of the JHS Colour Box version 2. This pedal is really awesome. I even used another video of mine where I mixed a whole song using just 3 guitar pedals, and this was one of them. It just does everything. I love it. Check out my other video. The link's in the description below. And thanks for coming by. Give it a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already.